Please excuse me if I told you the story before. I'm almost sure that I did, but I'm going to tell it again. Here we have another one of these um, parable, semi-parable, right, half parable, half story. It's told in like there's Sephardic books of stories. What is it called? Anyway, there's a lot of these books, Ben Ish Chaya's stories and things like that. Beautiful stories. And the point is the point of the story is more important than the details. The details are important, but the point of the story. Okay, here he goes. Here's the story. Once there was a king, a sultan or something, a great king. And let's say it was in Baghdad. I think the story was in Baghdad. And he was standing on his roof of his castle with his faithful advisor, Abdullah. And Abdullah hated the Jews, hated the Jews with a burning, terrible hatred. But he couldn't say anything bad about them because the king liked the Jews. The king liked the Jews. He liked to talk to the Jews. He had a few Jews living in his, in his palace, whatever. And the Jews always paid properly, and the Jews didn't make any trouble. And the Jews did. So he liked the Jews. Anyway, so this Abdullah was always looking for a way to somehow or other get rid of the Jews. So they were standing on and all of a sudden there was a falling star. You ever see a falling star before? It's very impressive, right? I've seen several times here in Israel. See a falling star. The star falls, and the king said, "Wow, look at that, a falling star." And his advisors gets an idea. Suddenly, an amazing inspiration. He said, "Your Majesty, that is the star of the Jews. That's the good luck star of the Jews, and it just fell. The good luck of the Jews is gone. It's announced in heaven to the king. And now is the time to evict the Jews from your kingdom and take all their money." I mean, after all, Your Majesty, between you, they're about a bunch of thieves anyway, and everything they have, they got from us, right? How did they get so rich? In your kingdom, they got rich. The king says, "Yeah, but I mean, they worked hard and they like everybody else. And how did everybody come rich? They're all part of it." "Your Majesty, the stars, the heavens are telling you." So I said, listen, Abdullah, you're my advisor. I really like you. But I read a little bit about the Jewish people. It's not so simple. I don't really even like to talk about it, to tell you the truth. But the Jewish people started off with this king called Paro. And he ruled the whole world, but he made trouble for the Jews. And God sent these terrible plagues. I'd rather talk about something else. He said, "No, Your Majesty, but you don't understand. This is a sign from heaven." He said, "But it was the same thing. They also, later on, there was another person called Haman. And he got hung up. He wanted to kill all the Jews. And he got hung up. Let's just change the subject. Come on." He said, "But Your Majesty, listen, please. Okay, you don't want to talk about, but let me just, one more thing. You got a clear sign from heaven that you should cast the Jews down. And not only that, the examples that you brought are very good examples, but you have to remember the reason that the Jews defeated Paro because they had Moses. And the reason that they defeated Haman was because they had Mordechai. The Jews don't have anybody like that now. They don't have anyone that can do big miracles like that, right? Especially not like Moses. Tell the Jews that they have 5 days to find someone who is as miraculous as Moses, and if not, you're going to evict all of them. Take all the money." So the king says, "You sure this is the right thing to do?" "Your Majesty, 100%. 100%, Your Majesty. I'm telling you, the star fell. If you don't get rid of them, the whole heavens are going to be against us instead of you." Okay, good, I'll do it. So the king writes this. He says, "Your Majesty, you don't have to do anything. I'll do everything." He writes these announcements, puts them on all the walls in the Jewish section and everywhere. The Jews see this. What's we're going to do? We have to find somebody like Moses that can do miracles like Moses. And if we can't, then we're going to all be evicted. So they go to synagogue and they're all praying. And the Jews are praying. They're fasting. And suddenly there comes one day in the middle of their fasting, there comes some wayfarer, some sort of a traveler, and he's all dusty, he's all dirty, he's got a big staff, and he sits in the middle of the synagogue, and he takes out, a piece of sandwich, bread, a loaf of bread, whatever, and he goes and he washes his hands and he eats, and he looks around and he notices that everybody's praying and all this. So he asks somebody, "Tell me, is something sort of some sort of a holiday or something today? What do you?" He says, "No, no, 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 no. We're all fasting." So, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't know. What are you fasting for?" He says, "The king made a decree that if we don't find somebody like Moses, he's going to evict all the Jews, and that's going to be in another 3 days. We don't know what to do." So this traveler sits and he thinks, and that's why you're all fasting, yeah. Evicting everybody, yeah. Finding someone like Moses. How are you going to find someone like Moses? I don't know. He's got an evil advisor. We don't know what it is, but we're praying. So this guy sits and he thinks. He says, "Listen, I'll do it." So what do you mean you'll do it? "I'll go to the king." He said, "Oh, maybe you can do miracles like Moses." "My friend, I can do miracles bigger than Moses. Moses is small on me." So they realized this guy is nuts. He's a nut, came from the street. He says, "Listen, you think I'm crazy? I'm going to go into the king. You got 2 more days. If what I do doesn't work, you'll just say that this maniac came in and he said that he could do it. Give us 2 more days. And now that you haven't got any choice." He said, "Okay, no choice. You're right." That day he goes to the king. He's got a gown. He's got a long garment with a staff. It looks like, sort of, theatrical. "I am the Moses of our generation. I want to see the king." So they let him in. The king laughing. The king's this guy, "You're Moses." He says, "Your Majesty, I can do miracles that Moses cannot do." So, the minister says, "Get rid of this guy. This is just an amazing." And the king says, "Listen, I don't want to take any chances. If this guy can really do miracles like Moses, and we do bad to the Jews, then you know what that means." He says, "Okay, Your Majesty." He says, "Well, exactly what type of miracles can you do?" He says, "I can do a miracle that Moses cannot do." "What is that?" "I can cut someone's head off, and the person could be dead. And then I could put his head back on, and he'll be alive. I can do this in front of the king." The king said, "You could do a thing like that?" He said, "Moses could do that?" "No." "You ever read that Moses could do? You ever hear anyone in the world that could do such a thing?" "I can have a person's head cut off, and I can actually put it a half an hour later. I can put it back on, and the person will come back to life. You want to see it?" The king said, "Okay, bring one of the prisoners out." The king, "No, no, no, no. 1 second, Your Majesty. This only works. It won't work with a criminal. It only works on a person that is truly wise. You have to take a person that is truly wise. I can cut off his head and put it back on. Can you do that?" The king said, "Someone is truly wise." The king looks at all of his advisors. All of his advisors are like, "I got to go to the bathroom. Excuse me, Your Majesty." They all get out. The king says, "It was Abdullah. Abdullah." Right? That was the name I used in the beginning of the story. "Abdullah. He's my wife." He says, "Your Majesty, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. This man is a faker. This man is a liar. He just wants to kill me." The king said, "Listen, maybe yeah, maybe no, but I'm not taking any chances. If this man is not a faker and he can really do it, then if I do something wrong to the Jewish people, then you know what it means? What's going to happen to me? Plagues, death. I'm a firstborn myself." "Okay, bring him out." He says, "1 second, Your Majesty." Abdullah says, "1 second, Your Majesty. It only works on a wise man. I'm not so wise. I'm not really a wise person." He says, "What do you mean you're not wise?" He said, "Nah, I really, I didn't graduate college. I was the lowest of my class. King said, "Listen, we have to find out if this person is. You're smart enough. You're smarter than me. It's good enough." "No, Your Majesty. The fact of the matter is, I didn't even finish grade school. I was the most stupid in the class. You can ask anybody. I got to my position by lying. I'm leaving. I'm getting out. And he ran away. So the king said to the wise man, he said, that was pretty clever what you did. That was pretty clever. He said, Your Majesty, the star of the Jews did not fall. Whatever reason you have for wanting to kill the Jews, or whatever, maybe you didn't know the star fell. Whatever reason you have for the Jews, the reason is wrong. It's false. It's just pure anti-Semitism. And the Jews have always benefited you, and they'll continue to benefit you. Said, okay, the decree is lifted. So, and they took him back to they took this man on their shoulders, and they took back to the Jewish community, and he saved the whole entire Jewish community with his wisdom. What's the point that we can use? The point is that when the Jewish people really need to be helped, is God always sends the help, but not always the way we think. Sometimes miracles come in very natural, clever packages. And so it will be to us now, all the problems of the Jews. And if you talk to the soldiers that come back now from the serving over there in Gaza, they'll tell you that the leadership is endangering their lives. And despite that, God does these amazing, amazing miracles for them. And that a lot of them, they say that the things happen that they can't say. If they would say, you would see how the government is endangering their lives. Incomprehensible, and amazing, amazing miracles are happening. And little by little, all the Jewish people, despite the tragedy or because of the tragedy, they realize that after all, it's God's world, and God is good, and the Jews are good. And the reason people hate us is because people are just evil. And God wants there to be evil in the world, doesn't want it to succeed. And we'll see soon that it won't succeed. With the arrival and the revelation of the Rebbe Milcha Mashiach now. Have a good day with Mashiach now, and we'll see you all tomorrow, 8:15.